Welcome back, wannabes and creators, to another episode of The Complete Creative, the podcast that helps you build a complete creative life. Today, I'm very excited to welcome Melissa Pagliuca onto the show. Melissa's a good friend of mine, but I'm going to be honest, I've butchered her name since the day that I met her. We spent 5 minutes before this episode going over how to pronounce your name, and I'm still relatively sure that I got it wrong. Melissa, though, is a wonderful creator. She had an incredible Kickstarter for her book, Above the Clouds, that raised over $43,000 on her first time out. She's been doing conventions since 2007, and she's an incredible creator, and I can't wait for you to hear what she has to say. Before we get to the show, though, I have to ask you that if you're liking what you're hearing, please just hit a subscribe button. It helps us more than you will ever know. And if you're getting a lot of value out of what we have to say, we have even more on thecompletecreative.com, including free courses, the archive to this podcast, and much, much more. So subscribe and head on over to thecompletecreative.com today. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's get on with the show. Take it away, Melissa. Tell us what you're passionate about these days.
Since I finished Above the Clouds, which was my graphic novel that I've been working on for 5 years, and I did the Kickstarter, I'm just super passionate about storytelling and where do I go next with learning how to tell a good story. So right now I've been planning out the next story that I want to do and thinking about what are my goals with storytelling. And so my first, when I did Above the Clouds, my first goal was just how do we even start a comic book? And I was more concerned with just getting one page out. And I'm like, oh, if I get one page out, it's a success. Now that I've done that, I want to try diving more into planning out a story, like fleshing it out more so, finding new ways to create a story on the back end before the viewer even sees it. So doing more correcting and editing and telling a tighter story. And right now I want to try telling a story about a romance. So it's like, how do you tell a story about a relationship between two people? So yeah, that's what I've been diving into right now. And it's pretty fun.
That's so funny because that's like the last thing that I have been working on too. Is like, how do you tell? Well, most of my books are action and thriller and fantasy, but it's like, how do you weave in a romance in there as well? It seems like it should be easy, but I've had such trouble with it over the past few books. How is it going for you?
I think since I'm still in the storyboard phase, it's hard to tell because you don't have that audience reaction to the work that you're doing. But right now, I think it's more so fleshing out the backstory elements so that when I tell their story, the backstory elements doesn't get in the way of trying to focus on this couple. But I'm having a lot more fun with designing the characters and the little story that I have so far, just trying to get their characters down. Like, how do they react and respond to things? And yeah, I think that's kind of more of where I'm at. I'm sure with you, since you have stories out, it has to be fun to see how people respond to the stories and characters that you created.
I mean, that's a double-edged sword. It's half fun and half horrifying to think about.
Yeah.
You know, I was just talking about this 1-star review that I got today, and I was like, I've been analyzing it for like the last 4 hours since I got up and read it because there's a difference between just getting like a 1-star review and like one sentence or no sentence. But this was like, a page and a half of like notes as to why they didn't like the book and what they didn't, and so I was like, oh, well, this person like didn't just not like it. This person like didn't like it and like has factual evidence as to why they didn't like it. And so that part is horrifying, but hearing all the people who like it is very gratifying. But the worst part is I have my most romantic book coming out in a little less than a month. It's about a boy and a girl who meet in Vegas, and he finds out that she's an alien and there's an alien invasion coming. But it's like all told through like their relationship, and like how like that's the main crux of the driving force is like their relationship, even though it's like this big overarching story. And so like I've never done anything where the story hinges on romance before. So I am very, very worried about how people will react to that one.
Well, I mean, you don't know until you do it and you put it out there, and yeah, I feel like, I mean, that's why I'm excited about telling this next story, is that it's like you can't learn and grow until you just do it and put it out there and be willing to fail and then learn from that and keep going forward. And but yeah, but I always look forward with romance is tension, the back and forth, the build up,
Right. Yeah. I guess it's not that much different than other conflict structures. It's just the conflict structure isn't internal. It isn't external, really. It's like in most of my, but when you're writing like a thriller, most of the conflict comes from outside of the main character or characters. But with the romance, the tension and conflict is really coming between the two main characters. It's like almost it's internal conflict that is driving the story forward. And even though there's external factors that play into that, most of the driving tension is between the two characters who are most present in the story instead of the characters who are not in the story. Or like maybe in a thriller, sometimes the tension is coming from a character you won't meet for 200 pages.
hmm I guess it's that attraction. It's sort of like the ticking time bomb is the attraction, and all the reasons why those two characters can't be together yet, and just how it plays out. And yeah, it'll be fun to read your story and see how it goes.
Yeah, I hope people. I hope people. It's the same thing that I say every time. But it's like just hope people like it. But I was thinking about this the other day because people are so focused on launch and like launching their book, but I feel like a book doesn't really like matter for me until it's been out for a year and I can tell what people are thinking about it and what people are excited about it and whether it actually connected in the way that I wanted people to connect. Because otherwise, like when it's launching, it's like, okay, you saw a little blurb, maybe you read a couple chapters, you saw a cool cover, you know I'm a good writer, so like you bought it. But like, I don't want to say it's trickery, but like on some level it's like it's not like they've read the whole book and then been able to tell you about it and then said, yes, I would have bought that again, or I'm going to buy book 2, or I want to buy another book from you because this book was so good. And I found like it takes really a year for a book to be in circulation before you can actually get any real feedback on it.
Oh yeah, I think that's what's hard for me, is that I'm still waiting for my Above the Clouds books to come in, which I don't think I'll have until September. Um, and it's like you do all this work to get in front of so many people's eyes, saying like, I exist, I'm here, and you get people interested. But it is more satisfying when they read it and they come back to you and they say like, oh, I really enjoyed it. Or when I was doing the chapters of Above the Clouds, it's like it's one thing to get someone hooked or to take a leap and buy chapter 1, but when they come back for chapter 4 and chapter 5, I mean that, yeah, it's a pretty exciting feeling to get that return where they want to know what happens next. And so it'll be fun to see how people respond to not reading Above the Clouds just in chapters, but being able to binge read the entire story.
Did you change anything when you did the chapters? Did you add anything when you did the collected edition? Because I know sometimes reading chapters is a lot different than reading a graphic novel.
It's pretty much the same. More of my edits was correcting text. There were a few like mistakes color wise, I would say, that needed to be altered to fit the print version. But the only thing I changed in the volume edition is I added a whole artist notes section where I have like a character sheet for all the characters and I talk about them, and I have like story notes and kind of like a little behind the scenes feel to the notes that, wasn't offered before with my other chapters.
I mean, that's the best part of graphic novels, right? When like you get that those author notes.
Like everything that goes into it. Yeah, it was really fun being able to put that together. And so it'll be fun to see how people respond to the author note section.
Well, we've been talking about your book for quite a while now. What maybe we should backtrack. So a lot of people who are listening to this probably don't know anything about the book. So could you talk a little bit about your journey and then making the book, and then I want to get into the crazy success you had with that Kickstarter too. But just a little bit about your backstory and then the book that we've been talking about.
So, Above the Clouds, and you can read the whole thing right now at atcloudscomic.com. Um, and it started as a way for me to learn how to make a comic and put one together. And before I started that project, I had this other story idea. I worked on it for a year, and I realized, like, man, this is going nowhere. And that's when I realized I was being too perfect and too precious. And so Above the Clouds started with this line where I'm like, a boy gives a girl a book. And the next day I drew out two character. Yeah, I did like a couple pages of sketches, and I'm like, oh, I like these characters. And the next day after that, I drew out 2 pages, like the two first pages of the comic, and I'm like, I think this is going somewhere. And so that's the reason why I started it. And Above the Clouds is a half silent comic that intertwines 2 stories, and it follows the main character Eiley, who's given this book, and she falls in love with this story only to find out that it's not done. And it's about her trying to get this author who doesn't believe in himself to finish it. So yeah, half of it's told just through pictures, and the other half is seeing the story that Eiley's reading about this hero who's on this quest to save this great world free from a dragon, and that has words and dialogue. And it was a great way to contrast these 2 worlds, one just through visuals, and the other of, you know, that feeling of when you read a book and you just kind of get lost in the world, and it just feels more real to you. And that's what I was trying to get with the book that Eiley was reading.
Can I ask you a question about it, about doing that thing? Because when the first comic that I ever did was called Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, and it was about a psychopath that didn't know if he was killing monsters, humans, or it's all in his head. And I wasn't a great writer at that time. Like, I didn't really know what I was doing in writing comics. So I purposely wanted it to be able to move between those worlds when I was confused, or I didn't know I didn't know like where the story was going next. It was nice to be like, okay, let's go back in time, or let's go into his head, or let's go in there. Was that a consideration when you were designing the book in the way that you did?
So when I started it, it was very fly by the seat of my pants. I would say it started visually, just because I'm more of a visual storyteller. But that definitely, as the story progressed, came into play of, since writing is not my strong um, suit, and that's something that I need to develop. And it's like, you know, art as a craft, you have to just do it more to get better at it. And so it was helpful to have part of it just told visually, and the other half try my hand at dialogue and storytelling. And at the same time, with the visual aspect, I thought that I wanted to be able to tell as clear a story as possible. And I feel if I'm able to tell a story and have someone understand it without words, then I feel like I could be more successful. And when I lay over dialogue, then I'm not being redundant, or I want the text to complement the artwork, I guess, to give more insight. But yeah, there's definitely me starting with my strong suit being a visual storyteller, and then slowly taking on the task of learning the craft of writing. And yeah, because it's its own mountain that you have to climb.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You have to, like, I have, obviously I'm the other way around, but I actually drew my own comic book at one point called Gherkin Boy and the Dollar of Destiny, because I wanted to kind of understand how like it works, how like doing the art part works, even though I never plan to draw another thing again for the rest of my life in that vein, at least. I just wanted to learn that way, because they are they're two sides to the same coin. And I've always found that people who are writing, who come in from the writing aspect, they tend to use way too much dialogue, and they're not necessarily trying to have the words complement the art. They're trying to have the words overpower the art.
Yeah, I have seen that a few times where you encompass this wall of text and you're like, whoa, what am I reading a book or am I reading a comic? And then yeah, but storytelling has its own set of tools with conveying information. And since I wasn't as strong with writing, I just like poured into all these different writing books, and I really gravitated towards Brian McLeod with uh, Invisible Ink. I'm not sure if you ever read this book. It's just the way he talked about the craft of storytelling really resonated with me. And I remember heavily it was because of his book that I felt more confident taking on Above the Clouds as a story and trying to grow. But yeah, lots of writing books because it, like you said, how you took on drawing to understand that aspect. I feel like it's super important to read all these books from writers about how they see story and how they compose like uh, the different like going from first act to the second act to the third act and how people respond to things. And another book was Wired for Story, where this author talked about like the science behind why people respond to how a story is structured or why writers use certain techniques and the response that readers have. Yeah, it's interesting talking to some comic book artists who are just artists, and I'll ask them like, "Oh yeah, so have you been reading any like books by writers?" And sometimes you hear them just shake their head no, and I'm like, "But comic book artists, storytelling, like I don't know." I try to get as much information as possible, and it's fun reading from a writer's perspective how they compose a story.
I'm not going to disagree with you there. Obviously, I'm biased to like reading writing books and such. Um, did you so from that Above the Clouds? And I want to get back to the Above the Clouds and the how you actually went about promoting it and such. But what do you think you learned? What are the think the most important things that you learned about writing when as you go into your next project that you learned from that book and the other books that you've read on the subject?
The most important was knowing where the destination was. So no matter what story elements that I was putting in, at least for me, because I know there's some authors who say they like to be surprised with the ending. But for myself, I feel like I need to have a destination point because then it makes sure that everything that I'm putting into the story is leading up to that point and that it could all tie in together. Or if I have side characters, that they're the theme of whatever these side characters are in there for, I hope would reflect what I'm trying to say with the story and help emphasize the destination point.
In fairness, even those people that say like they want to be surprised by the ending, during editing, they then go back and make sure that the ending makes sense throughout the story and they add in all of those things. It's something that you can do a lot more easily in a novel than a comic book because it's, you're not going to go redraw 30 pages of art at the end of the book, but you can, as a novelist, write the whole thing and then be like, oh, this is where it's going. Now I know where this character is the bad guy, so now I can go and layer it throughout.
Mm-hmm. And it's sort of for my next story that I'm working on, even with Above the Clouds, I had a skeleton outline of story beats, and there was enough room for me that as I was drawing that it allowed me to play in between, as long as I still kept to those beats.
When I started to do my follow-up stories for my first ones, I was able to layer on more character beats. I was able to layer on intention on the story and also the theme that we were talking about. And every time I started a new story, I was able to add to those story beats, mostly because I knew now what I needed from another story. Like each story that I wrote got more and more and more complex over time, and but it built from that one, and then I added more on the second one, and then more on the third, until now there's like 50 things going on in every scene.
That's amazing though to be able to weave all that together. And it's like as you keep doing your night story, you just get stronger with being able to handle all these different aspects.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what came comes from like just writing a lot and telling a lot of stories. Is I think at some point the 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 physical skill of my prose capped out. Like I'm not gonna be a significantly better prose writer. I've written 20 books now. Like my there's that like big jump at the beginning, but the by the 30th story you write, like you know you don't grow as much between story 31 and 32 as you did from like story 1 to 10. But what does change is the complexity that you can tell a story in, and the things that you can maneuver inside of those scenes, and also seeing ahead 20 steps to know what you have to do now to make something work at the end. And that's a skill I didn't have when I first started writing. I was kind of stuck in a fog in the dark. But when I wrote my, now I can be like, oh, well, if I do this in 50 pages, this other thing has to happen. Do I really want that to happen, or do I want to change direction now?
Yeah, when I'm storyboarding my new comic pages, my plan is to do like full chapters of storyboarding, not just trying to get one page out at a time. And so I'm looking forward to planning out more pages and being able to go back in the draft stage where, things aren't committed yet, where I can then alter it to tell that tighter story.
Yeah, I mean that's comes with I think growing from story 1 to story 2 or like at the I was the same way where I would just want to get one page out or one issue out at a time. Like Ichabod came issue by issue by issue, but now I did the next volume of Ichabod that we're doing now, and it all came out as one cohesive unit. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to say, and this is I know where it has to end in issue 8. So I need to start planting those seeds in issue 5. And I need to even go back to issue 3 and like add some pieces of issue 3 into issue 5. And the complexity with which you're able to work at, it's like how you couldn't walk when you were a baby, but now you can run and bike, and like you couldn't drive a car very well when you were 16, but now like you can drive pretty well without necessarily being completely focused on it.
Oh, but with Above the Clouds, like I literally started that thinking I was making a short story, even with the outline, and it ended up being the final book count is 288 pages, I believe, which is not very short at all.
It's not very short.
Yeah.
How I met you was on the con scene, going convention to convention to convention. Basically, over a year and a half, we built a friendship from seeing each other consistently. This is something you've been bringing to shows for a long time, right? Above the Clouds?
Yeah, and I believe showing my work for so long at conventions has been the reason why I did so well in Kickstarter. Because I originally did conventions even before doing the comic. I was an illustrator first, and then my goal was just trying to tell a story within a single image. And so I've been doing the convention scene for a while, and then I gravitated towards sequential art, and bringing each of my chapters every year. I'd be consistent with showing at all these shows repeatedly. How we became friends, being a consistent face, we became consistent faces to the crowds who would attend these shows. And you start building recognition with your comic book title. And I think it was being able to bring people to Kickstarter, and my mailing list is being able to stay, in contact with these people at the convention scene.
How long is a long time?
Let's see. I started doing conventions around 2007.
Oh man, that is a long time.
Yeah. Started off small, doing like the little local shows. And back then, I feel like comic and anime conventions were not like how they are today, where there are these huge, shows. And that's exciting how many shows that are available now as a creator to attend.
Yeah, I mean, but even San Diego Comic-Con, the mother of all conventions back in the day, wasn't nearly what it turned into in the past decade.
Oh yeah, that's what I hear. That should have been something to go to before it became the huge show that it is now.
I love the show that it became. I know I'm biased. I'm in the minority for comic book people there, but like I have always found tons of comic book stuff there. Like just like there's a lot of other BS that's there also, but just like the quality and level of comic book stuff that's there is just so high. It's so and there's so much of it. Like if you just took the comic book pieces like the artist alley and the comic book area, like small press, the web comics area, the independent press pavilion, and the like, there's more there than at almost any convention. Certainly, like a Silicon Valley, there's more stuff at San Diego than Silicon Valley. And I know Silicon Valley is not 1,000,000 square feet, but I think it's just the comic book stuff gets drowned out by everything else. But there's so much cool stuff. I didn't start going to 2010, so I missed this like heyday of what it was before.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember the first time I went into that convention, and it was just like mind blowing how much comic stuff that was there. Like I didn't even know there was a whole industry of stuff. Like I'd never seen it all, the whole apparatus before, but like Marvel and DC and all of it in one place was like, oh, this is quite big. Like you could make a living doing this.
Yeah, that was huge too, being able to see other creators doing their thing and, being able to have access and talk to these people who are sitting at their table. Like, how do you do what you do? And it is something like being able to just see someone do it gives you that inspiration. Like, I can do that too. And them telling you, like, the only difference between me and you is that I'm sitting behind a table and I'm, showing my work. And I'm like, that's true.
That is so true because that's what I tell people. It's like the thing that got me to like really move my career significantly forward was when I stopped being in front of a table and started being behind one, because suddenly like I wasn't one of the attendees, I was one of the vendors, and like there's this wall that totally breaks down when you say you're at a table, right?
Oh, yeah. Be able to talk to other like professionals who are doing their thing. And I feel like I've learned so much just going to conventions and talking to them. And it's like a time to like, how do you do what you do? And we start talking of, going back and forth about our business. And I feel like I have like friends, but all my friends live in different states or are kind of far away. Because you don't have too many people, at least around in my own community, where it's like having access to talking to people who are doing exactly what you're doing.
This is the second show that I've done in a row that's like, let's talk about doing conventions. But frankly, that's like how I made my bones, and most of the people that I know made their bones. And I think the beauty of conventions is it brings people from all over the world who are all doing the thing that you do or want to do. Like everybody is in their own bubble for the rest of the year. But when they decide to do a convention, they're all in the same place. Like they all agreed to be in this location at the same time, which means they don't have shit to do except this convention. And it like allows people this like clarity and focus, and that like you just don't get when you're trying to communicate with them online.
Yeah, it's different because like you're in your cave. At least that's how I call mine. Mine's the cave, and I get lost in my creating world. And when you're at a convention, you get to focus, like be more present, I think, because all the work you did leading up to it, it's like, I'm done, I'm here. There's no more prep work when you're at the show. Of course, there are the artists who take on commissions, and then that's too stressful for me trying to take on commissions at the show and then have it done. I like being able to be present and be at my table and then engage and talk to the people who are attending. It's my chance to have a conversation. And if I'm doing commissions, then my head's looking down and I don't feel as engaged, I guess. Yeah, because being at conventions is my chance to have a conversation and talk about what I do. And I feel like those conversations are just so important.
Yeah, well, it brings you out of just like you're the person who makes beautiful pictures, and it makes you a human. And connecting that art to human is so essential when you're trying to make an enduring fan.
Oh yeah, and they want to know what you do too. Like, how do you do what you do? How do you create? What were you thinking here on, when you were in this chapter? Or, uh, yeah, it's fun being able to have all these different conversations with different people.
I agree. I mean, when people say that they leave a convention and they've got like 3 commissions to do and they're up until 2 a.m., I mean, look, we all got to make our mortgage or rent payment, right? Like, I get that you have to do that, but I don't know how I could work a show all day and then go back to my convention and my room and draw all night and still wake up the next day and be cogent to be able to sell on that day too, because like the selling part of it takes a lot of energy from me.
Yes. Well, you're there standing for 8 hours, having to be present at your table. And I don't know how you are. I don't get my energy from talking to people because I'm more of an introvert. And so it does take quite a bit out of me being in that different convention um, element where you have to be present and you're talking a lot. And then by the end of the show, when you've been up for 8 hours, like, I just want to eat dinner and I'm going to pass out and I'm going to wake up the next day and be ready and fresh for a whole new set of people to talk to. And
I mean, I'm an extrovert, and it's draining me by the end of the day. Like, it's draining me just thinking about how many people you're going to talk to. Like, there's a difference between being a pretty far on the scale extrovert, like pretty extroverted. Like, I'm definitely more extroverted, considerably extroverted than introverted on the IE scale. But uh, I mean, it's a difference between talking to. I like talking to people, but talking to 1,000 people a day is a much different thing. You know?
mhm, no, it is. And and that's not to, I'm not in no way trying to disparage people who do commissions, because it's just deciding as a business person, where would you like to spend your energy. And for some people, they have the helper at their table who are able to engage and talk, and manage sales, or someone who is able to balance both really well. It's just personally, I'm not able to balance it as well. And I just see it's more of a benefit as a business person, like for my art business, to be able to be present and talk about my work versus trying to dedicate that time towards sketching and then not engaging with the people at my table. Because usually I'm working my table by myself. Um, and I'm lucky if I have a friend, or my husband sometimes will join me on trips. Uh, and he'll usually be present enough for me to take my bathroom breaks or bring me lunch. But usually it's me by myself working my table. And it really is working your table, because you have to, uh, I feel like standing is important, being present at your table. You are ready to have just a conversation to the people who come by. And yeah, it's just a different energy at the table of where you want. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, like, every interaction has to be good. Like, if you don't have a good interaction with every person that passes your table, like, it's almost no chance that you're going to make the sale if you're not having a good interaction. So you have to be, like, on point constantly, because every person, if you don't, this may just be my anal retentiveness, but like, if every person, if you don't have that good interaction, like, that person's probably going to walk away. And because there's so much good stuff at a convention, like, the thing that separates me from other people is like the interaction that I have. Yes, the books are great, but like, there's tons of great books at a convention. Like, there's tons of cool things to see. So the thing that I try to use to separate myself is like just making sure to have that highly engaged interaction. And that, more than anything, is just so draining.
It is. A good training, though.
It is. It's a good drink, because you're like, okay, well, like, I just sold a bunch of my stuff to humans who like I just came out of my head, and now it's like on a paid.
They like the thing that I do. This is great. I want to talk about the thing that I do.
Yeah, it's like, wait. Like, you're gonna give me money for this thing that I just wrote out of my head? Like, it's an amazing but very draining. Like, by the end of 5 days, or 3 days, or even 2 days, it's just like, oh my god, I need to not do anything for a week.
Yeah.
And that, more than anything, is my biggest problem with shows, because it's like, it's a week to prep.
Yes.
Then you got to do it, and then you got to recover from it. And I'm like, oh, cool, I just lost like 2 weeks of productivity for this 1 week of thing.
Yeah, and do you still try to do your creative work while prepping? Because I have this like trying to balance out, like spreading out how much I need to do to prep, and then being able to still be on the creative output end of not falling behind.
Yeah, I try to do that while prepping, but it's hard. It's because I know it's impossible when I'm recovering.
Yes, and you really do need that recovery time too, to just like be at home, sit, do nothing, maybe just sleep the whole day.
Well, yeah, my brain just doesn't work. It's just like, it's just, I'll be sitting, if I try and do it while I don't know, let's say like the Wednesday after Comic-Con. I'm just going to sit there and be like, it's like having the flu, even if you don't. Like, if you've ever, like, everyone's had the flu and been like really run down with like some sort of sickness. And that's how I feel afterwards. Even if I'm not sick, I just have that same like eyes glazed over, like head just like muddy. Like, I just have no idea what's gonna, like, I can't physically do anything. And so, yeah, this is one of the things I've tried to do when I've been cutting down on shows for the past couple years. And like, my productivity has gone so high, but my income has gone down in the show area, because, you know, it's much harder to do like 10 big shows and have them do really, really, really well consistently, than to have like a bunch of big shows, but then several medium-sized shows and a couple of small shows. It like helps balance out the year when you have that crappy show that shouldn't have been crappy, but just this year it tanked for some reason.
Yeah, that whole cutting back on shows, when I the last couple chapters for Above the Clouds, I had money saved, and I had to make that choice between, am I going to do X amount of conventions, or do I want to get this thing out? Because I was calculating how many pages I was getting done for a chapter and how long that would take. And if I'd kept to my current path while maintaining that huge convention workload, I realized I was going to be like a couple years out working on this project. And I'm like, I can't do that. And so I made that leap on the amount of money I had saved, and decided to take that risk of cutting down way on conventions and just focusing solely on getting the chapters done within that year. And I was able to do it because I cut back on shows, because they take out like a week out of your time. It kind of disrupts the flow to how you decide to work. And you have to like get back to that flow again. But yeah, it's making that choice.
That is a great segue into, it seems like it worked out for you, because you did the Kickstarter last September, and it went bananas. I mean, I think you raised $43,000.
Yeah.
From how many backers?
Over 1,000.
Yeah, for your first campaign.
Yeah. Yeah. I was so afraid too when I was launching it. I'm like, I hope I get 12 grand. And that was just to do like a soft cover edition. But yeah, I think all putting in all that footwork before even going to Kickstarter was what really helped with that first day. And then not only the footwork, but people who, you know, are my friends who believe in my project, and fans, and having them in my corner. And you were like a huge help too. Like, you were so helpful with like, Melissa, have you thought about this? Melissa, did you think about that? I'm like, oh yeah. So I mean, like, having these conversations with people who've been there and been in the trenches, like, that was a huge leap forward with having that successful first day and launching correctly. Yeah,
because your page was like beautifully put together. Like, I remember going to your page, and I go to a lot of pages, and I'm usually like, all right, this is going to be like mediocre, right? Like, it's got to be mediocre. Like, they're always very, very mediocre. They're always fine. They're always just fine. And I went to your page, and I was like, holy shit, this is going to go bananas. Like, I just knew, like, from how you had laid the page out. Can you talk a little bit about how, like, why you laid the page out like you did? Which was kind of, it was all illustrated. At least the top was illustrated, and it just kind of told this beautiful story going down.
I do the same thing where I look at a lot of Kickstarter pages and I would ask myself that question, like, how am I responding to this? What is it about this page that I like? What draws me in, and what things about this page do I not like? And so having that frame of mind of when I put my own page together, it's like, what do I look for? And since like the purpose of my Kickstarter is to promote a graphic novel, it felt like it made sense to be as visual as possible with presenting, like, here's a quick summary of the story. I wanted the images to sort of take the lead with drawing people into the page. Um, and then also, just being from the business art side of realizing that people don't like to be bombarded with a wall of text. Their eyes will kind of glaze over. So my goal was like, keep it concise, keep the paragraph short. And as if I can make it a visual element, then and that will be better than trying to explain it through text, then use the graphic because people love images. Like, what was it? Wasn't there a study about, even on Twitter, about, and even on Facebook, if you notice, people now make their posts, it's not just text, it's like this colored background image and then text, because it captures the eye. Like, more you'll be able to get more people to look at your stuff through graphics, I think. And so that's what I tried to do with my page. Like, try to keep it simple and elegant, and let graphics take the lead in trying to tell the story.
What I love about that page is it perfectly encapsulated what, like, the feeling that I think that you were going for with the story. Like, as I read it, I was like, oh, this is like gonna be like this whimsical, fantastical journey through like books and like magic, and like I want to be a part of that.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess visually, just being able to give people the impression of what to expect without having to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that most campaigns don't do is I have no idea why I should back this. It's kind of like the same thing with convention people, or like really anywhere, but especially cons and Kickstarter, which I think are almost like incredibly interrelated as to how to be successful on there, which is like, why did I make this? Why am I the only person qualified to do this? And why should you care? And the thing that I love about your page is it answered all of those questions very, very succinctly, both in the text and then in the video, which you weren't even going to put on, were you?
Oh, yeah. So originally I had the main video be sort of like a trailer to the comic book where it's just focusing on the story. And then I made a second video where it was me talking about it. And I'm like, oh, I'll put that in the body. And then you saw it and you're like, Melissa, I think you should switch those two videos around. That was a huge help. Yeah, because people want to see you and get a feel of the person behind the project.
Absolutely. And like, why? Like, anybody can look at a page and see the what, right? Like, and the how. Like, okay, there's money. Here's the money that's coming in. Here's the money going out. Here's why I need X, Y, and Z thing. Okay, I get all of those things. But like, the why is the thing that connects you to the creator, which is in both people who buy at conventions and on Kickstarter. Like, they're not on Kickstarter because they just want a cool book. Like, if they wanted a cool book, there are literally millions of cool books on Amazon that they could just go to and get tomorrow. The reason that they're on Kickstarter is to connect with the source material. And the same thing at conventions. Like, they're trying to connect their convention experience with cool people and then like get something that is just what they can't just get on Amazon. So that was what I really loved about your campaign, was you showed why this is not just something I can go and buy on Amazon later.
Yeah, and it's really rad being able to see, like, Kickstarter is rad how it brings all these. It gives a platform for indie creators to put their work out there. And I mean, that's what people are looking for. They're not just looking for something that they can walk into a bookstore, commercial. It's someone who's, putting their work out. I mean, same thing with conventions too. It's just there's so many creative people out there, and it's so rad being able to see it.
Yeah, that's why I think you did so well on Kickstarter, is because you had that convention mentality, which is very different than people that like are just putting a book on Amazon and then trying to like get ads. That's not to say one is better than the other, but like one is much more personal. Like con sales are incredibly personal. Maybe not when you're like Tokidoki, but even when Tokidoki was like they could go to Amazon and buy Tokidoki stuff, like or Funko Pop stuff, like they're buying it at the Funko Pop booth because of the connection and the personalization that you get at a convention. And like I said, the same thing on Kickstarter. Like, if someone's gonna wait 6 months, or you started that in September, it's now July, so a year to get your book, to get the books to you, like there better be a damn good why as to why I'm going to give you that money, right?
Yeah, and they want to feel secure too, knowing that when they're supporting a creator on Kickstarter, that what they're putting into it and their investment in you as a creator, that you're going to deliver on what you promise. And your pages is saying, this is a promise that I can deliver on. And here's like, you have to be able to let people have that sense of confidence and credibility of knowing that you're able to deliver what you're promising. And that's why I thought it was important to give as much information as possible too. Like here's what my book looks like. You can even read it for free, online right now. It's already done. Here's the specs of the book. Here's how many pages it's going to be. Because sometimes I go on a page and I'm kind of confused as to like, what exactly am I getting? Like, you don't want your viewer to be confused at any point, because as soon as it's like reading a good story. As soon as they start questioning the story, you feel like you're being taken out of the story. And so you want to make sure there's no interruptions when they're reading their page, that they see what it is. They feel confident by the end of reading your page, like Kickstarter page. Yeah, you just want a really good flow. No unanswered questions. Clarity.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's why I always tell people that they should. That's the number one reason I tell people to finish their book before they go on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, the hardest thing is to convince someone that you're not going to flake out, right? And if you're like, hey, here's the book, it's done, all I got to do is print it, like it instills confidence in a way that, unless you're a very well-established creator who's done a lot of projects and delivered on them, like it's hard to replicate that in any other way.
And you want to remove as many barriers as possible too. Like someone reading it's not finished. I know lots of people on Kickstarter who say, I don't even look at a project if it's not done. Like, because they've been burned. They've had projects that they invested in. They didn't get the book. And so that stays with them. And so when you're presenting anyone else presenting their project on Kickstarter, you have to keep in mind that people have been on Kickstarter, invested, and had that experience. And why is your project not going to recreate that bad experience?
Exactly. And more importantly, why is it going to deliver a good experience?
Yes, more important.
All right. So I got to ask you, since your project is still not delivered,
yeah,
what are you doing? What are you doing to keep people confident on are you doing backer updates regularly, or
everything that I know, I try to be completely transparent. And so I make sure to update every month. They know exactly where it is, what's happening in the project, what's going on behind the scenes, what exactly I'm working on, to make it so that when I get the books, I can just instantly start, sending them to the post office and shipping them. And yeah, it's tough because this is my first time going overseas, and I'm working with a broker who's like kind of the middleman who handles the printing project. And there have been delays. And so whenever I had a delay, or my understanding of it, I immediately go to Kickstarter. I'm like, hey, backers, here's what's going on. It's like a status update. And I feel like as long as your backers have a sense of confidence as to what's going on, they're okay. Like, they're okay if there's delays, just be honest about it. And so that's what I try to do, is honest, transparent about the process. And they'll know their book is coming.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can do, right? I mean, you can't stop that the printing got delayed or the books. One of my books got delayed for a month in China and for 2 weeks in America. And like, you can't do anything about that. Like, that's just, but you can tell people the process. And one of the things that people always tell me on my campaigns is like, at no point did I feel like you were going to abandon this project.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be a thing that you have to say, but like that separates you. Just that little thing separates you from other people that have just abandoned them for a year or 6 months or 5 years or 10 years sometimes.
Wow. Yeah.
All right. So we've been talking for about an hour, so I think it's about time we should wrap this up.
Okay.
So what happens is most of the people have this on in the background, or they're doing something else, and so this is when I ask them to come back, pay attention.
All I've had is my coffee.
This is when you deliver the most important thing that you've learned that you want them to take away with from this podcast.
All right. The most important thing that I could say is that it's okay to make mistakes. Don't run away from failure. I feel like as a business person, you need to fail as fast as possible and get them out of the way. That way you can move forward and you can deliver what you need to deliver. Like even with the Kickstarter, if there are delays, you have to be honest about what's happening. And you have to let them know. I wish I could tell younger me to stop worrying about being perfect. I think that's what delayed even starting my first story Above the Clouds was I was trying to be perfect. I was treating it too precious, and it just stopped me from even starting to begin with. And I started getting somewhere when I was willing to make that mistakes and realize that it's okay to not be perfect. And as long as I was getting a page out, I was already successful because you're one step ahead than zero.
People are a lot more forgiving of mistakes than you think, right?
I think so. I think you are harder on yourself because you want it to be at the certain level of perfection. But, people don't see it the same way as you do. They're happy to enjoy what you're creating, and they want to be a part of it and see it. And it's okay to let it out there. Let it be what it's going to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for stopping by.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for talking.
So that was Melissa Pagliuca. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I sure learned a lot, and I love talking to Melissa every time I get a chance. If you did like this episode, please, please, please go find her online. Check out her webcomic, Above the Clouds. Check out her amazing Kickstarter that raised $43,000 last year. And if you're liking this show, subscribe, and then head on over to thecompletecreative.com and check out all the other resources we have for you.